What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is your weekly react on video for the First Descendant. I do one of these every Tuesday because every Tuesday there is a reset and the reactor combinations from different missions shuffles around, and there are certain missions in or activities in the game which are far more lucrative than others in terms of reactors per hour, and I aim to explain some of those or point some of those out to you in these videos so you can go and target farm your reactors and get your Descendants kitted out. Now, how I create this information is I create myself a list like this. This shows every single Descendant in the game with what is considered its best in slot reactor. And then we can also change that list into something like this, which shows us that we can actually combine farm for certain Descendants because certain Descendants use the same combination of reactor. Good example would be Esiemo and Lepic. Both of them use burning mechanics, which is of course fire and tech, and so therefore while you're farming for Lepic, you're also farming for Esiemo, which is just really good and does cut down on some of this bullshit. That being said, this week is actually a good week for Esiemo and Lepic, and by the way, this video covers from the 18th of Feb until the 25th of Feb. So as said, this week is a good week for Esiemo and Lepic. If you are looking for burning mechanics reactors, which is fire and tech, you are going to be going to this sterile land. And this area down here is called Rockfall. Now Rockfall has a mission in it called Anticipated Ambush Point. It's a super easy mission to do very fast with a good AoE Descendant like Bunny or Freyna or Ines. And this works exceptionally well if you do it in teams because someone can man the button at the bottom and someone can do all the killing, and then you can essentially just have the button guy come up every once in a while and come get the ill-gotten gains. Hopefully you can get some decent reactors this way. Next up, if you play with GAG, Jayber, Valby or Gley, so Jayber, Valby or Gley, this is also a good week for you because non-attribute dimension reactors are what you're looking for these three Descendants. So again, just saying that's Jayber, Valby and Gley, and that's materialized phase. So this week we've got a very decent farm for them as well. We're going to go to Echo Swamp, and down here is an area called Abandoned Zone, and in Abandoned Zone there's a mission called Environment Contamination Zone. This is a very famous mission that essentially you can speedrun the shit out of it with someone like Bunny, but Valby does really well with as well. Again, AoE Descendants can farm these activities very fast. Ines obviously also works really well here. Again, this is something that works exceptionally well if you do it in teams because you can essentially run a tandem while somebody mans the button and another person does the actual activity. But this gives a decent amount of XP, weapon proficiency, gold, Kuiper, and you guessed it, reactors. So if you're looking for Jayber, Valby and Gley, non-attribute dimension, farm this activity this week. Next up we have Bunny and to a degree Ines. So Bunny of course uses Tingling Singularity, which is electric singular. If you are playing Ines without her most popular Transcendent mod, then two of her skills are singular, and so potentially you might want to have a singular reactor for Ines. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you're looking for a decent reactor for Bunny this week, I've got a decent farm for you as well. So this is of course electric singular, Tingling Singularity, and if we want to do that, we are going to go to Fortress, and Fortress has an area called Defense Line. Now Defense Line features the original like Valby farm, right? So the Valby farm essentially has you using Valby to go into an outpost. You do the reactors on the outskirts of the outpost, then you just kind of farm the outskirts of the outpost, making sure not to deal any damage to the boss, but just dealing a bunch of damage to the adds that spawn. You make your trail ability as small as possible, but dealing enough damage that it actually one-taps all of the enemies. But at the same time, again, like I said, making sure not to deal damage to the boss or kill the boss, because that means you can keep this farm for the 2 minutes and 40 seconds that these adds spawn. All of these adds drop, you know, character XP, weapon proficiency, gold, Kuiper, and yes, a shitload of reactors. So I do also want to temper expectations. There are a bunch of these Valby farms out there. This is, in my opinion, the worst one because it used to be so good. They nerfed it into the ground like 2 fucking times. So it's not as good as the other Valby farms, but it's still pretty decent and still a good way to rack up some of these reactors. So hopefully you get a decent one for your Bunny. Freyna also gets some love this week. So she uses Toxic Mechanics, which is Toxic Tech. She has a decent farm this week as well. So we're going to go over here to the Sterile Land, and we have an area called Repository. And Repository has a mission in it called Kuiper Mine. This is one of these missions where you essentially go in and press a button, and then you have to dismantle these mines by standing in them. But we're not going to do that. we're gonna press the button and start the 5-minute timer, and then essentially just spend time in this middle area here killing all of the enemies but not actually dismantling any mines. That means the entire duration of the 5 minutes you will get a massive amount of ads that spawn. They of course drop, you know, other equipment and stuff as well. You get gold, you get Kuiper, you get weapon proficiency, character XP, everything, and you're gonna get a boatload of these reactors to drop as well. And hopefully you can finally get the toxic tech reactor for your Freyna that you've been looking for. And then the last one of our reactor farms belongs to Viessa. So there's technically two kinds of reactors that you'll farm for Viessa, and that depends on which Transcendent mod you use. Now, if you're trying to build anything except absolute zero Viessa, then you'll want a chill tech reactor. So for example, if you're building cold-bloodedness, you'll want a chill tech reactor, and that is because her final skill is a chill tech skill, and that's where a lot of her sexy damage comes from. Again, like I said, as long as you're not playing absolute zero, because absolute zero actually changes the archetype of the skill. So if you are looking for a frozen mechanics reactor for Viessa, which is chill and tech, you've got a decent farm this week as well. We're going to go over here. Kingston is the first area in the game. Grand Square is over here, and it has a mission in it called Kingston Surveillance Radar. A very short little patrol-ish mission where you have a couple of groups of enemies that spawn. AoE descendants, so there's descendants that can move around the area very fast, work really well here because you kind of like just murder out all of these pockets of enemies that jump up, and then you reset and you go again. So super fast way to complete this mission is, again, somebody doing the actual killing and somebody running the button. As always with most farms in the game, it tends to be faster and better if you do it in groups, although I understand that not everybody always has that luxury, but I just felt the need to mention that. Hopefully you get some decent tech reactors for Viessa using this farm. Then I do also always make a point of pointing out any kind of external components farms that might be available the week as well. You might be wanting to farm specific kinds of external components because you're maybe trying to build a farm set or something like that. So this week we have two good ones. We have a decent farm for memory, okay, and that is at the converter facility, which is over here in Fortress. It has an outpost that you can also do in the Valby method. So this is a way for you to get a decent amount of these memory modules to drop, and hopefully some of those will be double gold stat farm set capable external components to get you going. Now, as mentioned, we also do have a decent one for another component, and that is processors. Processors has Vermilion Waste, which is in Agna Desert, and you guessed it, dust off that Valby, because there's a Valby farm here in this outpost as well, and basically this will get you a bunch of these processors to drop. And once again, hopefully you are blessed with a decently rolled one and you can get cracking on that farm set. That's going to be it for the farms this week. A lot better than what we saw last week. Last week was pretty slim pickings, so a lot of things to look for this week. Of course, we do know that in the future, the whole reactor thing is set to change and everything like that. I think March is going to be an interesting time for us to see all of the things that they're going to let us do to reactors so that we don't necessarily have to farm reactors. But at this point in time still, it's definitely something that you can still do, and every once in a while you are lucky and you get a fat fucking reactor, which is dope. As always, fucking cheers.